Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Pulse Talk Show. We are talking about the resistance of Qays ibn Mus-hir. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Pulse Talk Show. We are talking about the resistance of Qays ibn Mus-hir. Of course, our condolences to you all wherever you are upon the months of Muharram and Safar, where we commemorate the martyrdom and the mission of Imam Husayn alayhi salam, his family members and his companions. In order to talk a little bit about the resistance of Qays ibn Mus-hir, we invited Sayyid Agha al-Raza. Sayyid Agha al-Raza, assalamu alaikum, welcome to the Islamic Pulse Talk Show.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's nice to have you. Of course, our condolences on these months of Muharram and Safar, the martyrdom anniversary and the commemoration of Imam Husayn alayhi salam, to yours and to your loved ones. We had talked a little bit about the resistance of Qays ibn Mus-hir. We had talked in a previous talk show about some of the role models that are presented in Karbala. And also we talked a little bit about some of the unknown role models that we find in Karbala. And so in that framework, we wanted to talk about Qays ibn Mus-hir. We hand it over to you in the name of Allah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله ولا الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. The entire identity of the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, the entire school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt, it kind of revolves around Karbala. So if you, for example, if you go out into the world and if you ask people who the Shia are, probably the first thing that will come to mind will be the idea of Karbala, the event of Karbala, of Ashura, of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. Even if they don't know anything else about the teachings of the school of thought, the centrality of the movement of Imam Husayn is what makes up the very identity, the very fabric of what it means to be a Shia. And this is not just something that people perceive from the outside,
Right.
because at many times the perception formed outside a community is somewhat flawed. It's somewhat a sweeping generalization. But in this case, it is accurate. It is absolutely accurate. And as we have explained in some other talk shows and speeches, the event of Karbala, everything about it, it manifests all of the teachings of the Quran. So it's as if the entirety of Islam was put on display. Right?
MashaAllah.
It's interesting because when you look at the Quran talks about the virtuous and righteous people, and it talks about the wicked people as well. It gives you both of the examples, right? Of these currents throughout history. And according to the words of Shaykh Allama Ayatollah Murtaza Mutahari, Karbala has two faces as well. It has this radiant face of Imam Husayn and his companions, and then it has this dark face of his enemies. So all of that is being manifested on the fields of Karbala. Now, having understood this, the centrality of this theme, it makes sense that we as followers of the Ahlul Bayt should really be experts on the lives and the resistance and the struggles of all of the ashab, the companions of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, the companions of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. In the salam the salutation that we just recited, it ends with wa ala ashabil Husayn, right? But the unfortunate reality is that even students within the Hawza, when it comes to even the Ahlul Bayt who were present in the fields of Karbala, the brothers of Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, the other people of Bani Hashim, except for a handful of the most radiant, most glorious of these martyrs, we tend to forget many of the other people who were there, who were fighting alongside Imam Husayn alayhi salam, who are truly heroes in their own right. And when it comes down to the companions, then many people are overlooked. One such character, one such hero is Qays ibn Mus-hir, or in some other historic texts, his name is Qays ibn Musahir. So this is a person who, when you look through his biography, especially in the context of Karbala, you find that he is an extremely dynamic individual. He is, you can even claim that he is in charge of Imam Husayn's communications. Now, the interesting thing is, even in modern armies, you have this separate section which is called the Signals Corps. For example, in armies that are influenced by the British tradition, you have the Signals or the Communications Corps, and this is seen as the backbone of any operation, because if communications break down, then nobody knows what's going on. Qays ibn Mus-hir single-handedly was the communication head and the communication apparatus of Imam Husayn alayhi salam.
Interesting.
If you look through the services that he performed in this manner, basically his role within the context of Karbala begins when he brings certain letters from Kufa. He was a resident of Kufa. He brings certain letters from Kufa to Imam Husayn alayhi salam. These are some of those famous letters in which the people of Kufa, some of the elite of Kufa, are pledging their allegiance to Imam Husayn and inviting him to come to Kufa and to lead the uprising against the Umayyad usurper Umayyad regime. So there is the starting point of his career in the context of Karbala. So and then he is the person who is with Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salam on his journey back towards Kufa. So Imam Husayn, he sends Muslim ibn Aqeel to Kufa to check out whether the claims being made by the people of Kufa are truly genuine or not, or whether the situation is ripe for him to continue his movement. So in this episode, when they're going towards Kufa, certain events occur which put Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqeel into doubt about whether they should continue towards Kufa or not. And he writes a letter back to Imam Husayn. The person who brings this letter back to Imam Husayn
is
Qays ibn Mus-hir. And the interesting thing is, the reason why we're noting all of these events is that this communication needs to be done at lightning speed, because you can't have Muslim ibn Aqeel waiting in the middle of the desert for like weeks. Right? So he had to be extremely fast. He had to avoid any
entanglements,
any spies along the way, because the Umayyad government had already understood what was going on, and they were blocking the main roads. One of the reasons why Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqeel was faced with certain circumstances along the path was because he had run out of water. His ride, the camel, etc., had suffered, and even the people who were with him as guides had said that they weren't going to continue any longer. So that shows that they were taking a path which was not the main path towards Kufa, because they had to move in a covert fashion. And it was in this context that Qays ibn Mus-hir was performing his duties in an excellent way. So he brings the letter back to Imam Husayn. Imam Husayn replies. He brings the letter back to Muslim. He continues with Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salam to Kufa. There they congregate at the house of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi.
You know, before we so it's a good place to maybe pause. Even though there's something that you said quite, some few minutes ago, I didn't interrupt you. Maybe I should have, but it's interesting. You brought up the fact that how few of us know the names of the non-famous, shuhada and the non-famous martyrs of the event of Karbala. So if you take the number of 72, out of those 72, maybe we know 10, maybe we know 12 max, and it really shocks you that many of us we don't know those other 60 martyrs, what their names were. But what makes it even more unfortunate, and we had talked about this in one of the talk shows over the years, it's interesting how, this subject came up again, because it was probably, a year or two, if not more ago, that we spoke about this, how when it comes to, unfortunately, comic book heroes, when it comes to sports heroes, celebrities, movie actors, we know the names of
Sportsmen
almost
and
all
women,
of them,
yeah.
But when it comes to these heroes of Islam that you said, these
And the
champions
kids, they
of
don't
Islam,
just know their names, they know their entire biographies, they
yeah,
know their, like for when it comes
yeah,
to athletes, they know their
yeah,
entire track records,
yeah, what
right?
team they used to be
Yeah,
in and when they got transferred, and
yeah.
but the second thing though, which is talking about Qays here, him going back and forth so many multiple times, this was something that was relatively dangerous. I mean, if
Extremely
he got
dangerous,
caught,
yeah.
they probably would have killed him.
Absolutely.
Because he's this messenger of Imam Husayn alayhi salam and the people of Kufa and Muslim ibn Aqeel. So we shouldn't think that because he's taking letters back and forth that he's like the postman or something.
Yeah.
There's no big deal. No, it's actually quite dangerous what he was doing, and it took a lot of courage for
Especially
him to do
in that era, even if it wasn't a dangerous circumstance in terms of the politics involved, even naturally, in normal circumstance during that era, if you were going across the desert in this manner, at this speed, it wasn't something. It was basically full of dangers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the very imminent danger of running out of water, running out of food, of not being able to find shelter during a sandstorm, which are famous in the Arabian Peninsula, being attacked by thieves, by thugs, by animals in the desert, snakes, scorpions, etc., etc., etc. And then just increase the level of danger when you actually have people looking for you, looking for the messengers of Imam Husayn, trying to curtail their mission, trying to stop them from getting to Kufa or to any other place that they want to go. So it was an extremely difficult situation which was being maneuvered by someone like Qays, and that actually shows you how skilled this person was in the duty that he was performing.
And this is the resistance, that we're talking about. Sometimes, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, but sometimes we think that resistance is something that is some kind of a colossal movement or a colossal action that we do, or when sometimes something as simple as, in his case, Qays's case, right, taking a letter back and forth is a form of resistance.
Absolutely.
So I guess that the spectrum of resistance is really wide. From something that is very simple is considered to be resistance, and of course something incredibly big, for example, like Operation True Promise 3, is also considered to be resistance, and we should try to find maybe how we can help. I just wanted to add that in there. I'm sorry.
In continuation of what you were just speaking about, if we were to define Islamic resistance, very simply, like very superficially, it would be playing your own role in order to forward the total mission of Islam, right? And obviously that entails that you understand the mission of Islam as well. Many people misunderstand what Islam is, and then they believe that they are forwarding and taking forward the mission of Islam, whereas they're not doing anything. Like, even if they are not like being detrimental, they are neutral in nature. So they're not really creating an effect. But if you know what the mission of Islam is, which again comes back to the idea that you need to be studying the Quran, really studying the Quran, you need to be studying the foremost ulama and understand how they have understood through 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years of study. This is an expert who's understood Islam to its core, in its totality, and now this person is presenting you the fruit of his labor, right? And that makes it very easy for you, instead of actually going through the entire process being a mujtahid yourself, right? So if you understand Islam through the books of, for example, Sayyid Mutahari, Sayyid Baqir al-Sadr, Imam Khomeini, Imam Khamenei, others, Allama Tabatabai, etc., Allama Misbah, Rizwanullah Ta'ala. So if you understand the core essence of Islam, then you start understanding through a bit of your own creativity and guidance from the local scholars, etc., of how you can play your role in taking forward this mission. And it is that role that you play, that piece of the puzzle that you're completing, which means that you are part of resistance. Imam Khamenei, he has this very beautiful statement that he has about the Islamic system here in Iran. Because this is a question which is very pertinent, right? Every person, like for example, if you're a student at university, you're a teacher at university, you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you are a sanitation worker, right? And then you look at all of these great heroes on the resistance front, and your heart yearns to play a part for Islam as well. So Imam Khamenei, he speaks to them, all of these different people in society, and he says that if you want to do your part for the entirety of the system, for the entirety of the mission, do what you know how to do in the best possible manner. So you fill up that gap. Right?
Mashallah.
And this is also, it kind of overlaps with how he defines infaq in the book named Tarhe Kulli Andishe Islami, which has been translated into Reclaiming the Islamic Narrative, I believe is how they've translated it. Right in the beginning, he talks about infaq. So he says that people misunderstand what infaq is. They believe that, okay, if we give $1 or so to someone who's poor, or give a certain amount of money to someone who's poor, or so then they're doing infaq. That is part of the picture, but it is a very watered down part of the picture. The true meaning of infaq is to fill up a gap within society, within the overall movement of Islam, and really fill it up. You can find smaller gaps as well, right? You don't need to be Shaheed Qasim Soleimani. Not all of us need to be Shaheed Qasim Soleimani. There are smaller gaps that need to be filled. But filling up those gaps, doing the best that we can with a mindset that we are part of that movement, with a bit of soul searching that lets you look inwards introspectively and weed out all of those nafsani and carnal soul waswas, right, that are telling you that no, we want a comfortable luxury religion, right? If you weed all of that out, I'm going on a complete tangent right now, but these are things that need to be talked about. Inshallah, we can do that in the future as well. One of the primary targets of the carnal soul, of the nafs, is that it, especially in religious people, is that it wants to have religion, and at the same time it does not want to have responsibility. So it wants to have the cake and eat it as well, right? So that is where a lot of fisad comes out from. That is when you slip from the Islam of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam into the Islam of Abdullah ibn Umar, right? The Islam of luxury, the Islam of meaningless worship. In a letter that Muawiyah writes to his son Yazid, he talks about, and I think I've quoted this before as well. He writes to, and this is one of the final letters that he writes. It's kind of his will and testament. He says that I've already trained the Arabs to be obedient to you. I've already tamed them, right? So they're not going to really stand up against you. But I'm worried about 4 people that you'll need to be sensitive about. One of these 4 people, it's Imam Husayn alayhi salam, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Bakr, and Abdullah ibn Zubayr, right? So when he talks about Abdullah ibn Umar, he says, don't worry about him. Because all he does all day and all night is pray and worship. And see, why isn't Abdullah ibn Umar's worship a threat to the Umayyad regime? Because it's meaningless worship. This shows you that you can have worship that is antithetical to Islam, right?
Yes. Yeah, well said.
So, but since this is a discussion for another day.
He was at Mukhtar al-Thaqifi's house.
Yeah, we were at. So you can play your role the best that you can in your own circle of influence, creating that awareness about tyranny in the world, tyranny in our own, the way that these tyrannical systems affect our own lives, right? How they have us trapped in debt, how it has us trapped in a system which pushes us towards indecency, pushes us towards immorality, and the ultimate outcome of that is to create zombies who have absolute apathy when it comes to the suffering of other people, right? If you want to like imagine the perfect output that they're trying to achieve through the cultural, economic, political, media systems that they've created, you can look at one of these Zionist media persons in the West. You can look at people like Piers Morgan. You can look at people like, for example, the comedian that was asked about Palestine, and he says that I don't care about Palestine, and then he starts grinning at the camera. You see, these are zombies. They are people who have no values, no morality. When you put up pictures of dead kids in front of them, they have no reaction. That's how dead they are inside. This is the kind of individual that Western society, Western civilization, and the structures, I'm not talking about the people on the ground, I'm talking about the structures. This is the kind of individual, this is the output that they want to achieve. Because when you are a zombie of this sort, then you're basically cattle, but you're worse than cattle. Then you can be milked, you can be used, your flesh, your bones, your skin, your labor, everything can be used, utilized, and you'll be happy with it as well, because they'll be giving you fodder, right? And you're happy with the fodder, right? That is the kind of output that they want. They don't want people who question, who rebel, and even
or who think.
Or think, exactly, because when you start thinking, you start seeing discrepancies, you start seeing contradictions, you start seeing instances of tyranny, instances of oppression, and then you start talking against it, you start acting against it. And even for the small percentage of people who have this inner urge of rebelling, the system itself has a way to kind of maneuver you towards meaningless rebellion.
Controlled rebellion.
Controlled rebellion, so that they can kind of release the pressure, right? So, but alhamdulillah, we find that, nature makes its way, right? Again, in the words of Sayyid Mutahari and also Imam Khamenei, he says, Islam is nature, right? When we say that Islam is the natural religion, he goes a step forward. He says Islam is the very essence of nature, and nature finds its way. So Islam finds its way. You find that even after all of these structures that have been created in the West, such absolute censorship, not only in the media, but in all levels of society. Conditioning at a colossal level. You still find now that, alhamdulillah, the youth of the West, the Jews, the Christians, people who consider themselves secular, people who might have no religious affiliations at all, right? Sunnis, Shias, all of them coming together, Hindus coming together and rising up for Palestine. This shows that the project of the West has failed, right? And what are these people doing? They're doing Islamic resistance. How? Because they're doing the best that they can do according to their intellectual, spiritual capability and the influence that they can have on society, right? So coming back to Mukhtar.
He was at Mukhtar Saqafi's house.
So now they arrive at Mukhtar Saqafi's house, which is the center of revolution in Kufa at that time. So what Qays does, because they have to gather people, right? So Qays, he writes out to his own tribe, which is Bani Asad. He is part of the Bani Asad tribe. And he goes there, he talks to these people, he is very eloquent. He explains to them the cause of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. He explains to them who Imam Husayn alayhi salam is, right? His affiliation to the Prophet, to the daughter of the Prophet, to Imam Ali alayhi salam, etc. And he gets them motivated to come and become part of the revolution in Kufa. One of these people, interestingly, who find out about what's going on in Kufa is Habib ibn Mazahir. So Qays is instrumental in getting Habib ibn Mazahir to the revolution, bringing into the revolution. And again, this highlights the importance of communication at that time, right?
Sure.
Because the idea, if you look at it from a devilish perspective, right? The best thing for Yazid to do at that time was to somehow censor the entire movement of Imam Husayn so that people don't find out about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? He tried to do it before Karbala, and then he tried to do it after Karbala. Before Karbala, people like Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salam, Qays ibn Mus-hir alayhi salam, others were able to get the word out. Right?
Yeah.
After Karbala, Lady Zainab salamullah alayha, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, they were able to carry on the message. They broke through those iron walls of censorship, of a tyrannical regime which had absolute power. This in itself is a message for us. You see, the kind of tyranny that they had back then was like there were no gloves on, right? This was absolute tyranny, absolute tyranny. Like they would kill people, make walls out, mortar out of their bones and their blood, right? In the time of Muawiyah, there was no shame even in killing the companions of the Holy Prophet, killing Hujr ibn Adi, for example, Rizwanullah ta'ala alayhi salam. People of that stature, it didn't matter. And then they would blame it on anything, like say that he was doing such and such criminal activity. They had so absolute control over the media at the time that they could spin it around in whatever fashion they wanted, right?
Yeah, and they were doing that.
And they were doing that like in a consistent manner. One of the reasons, one of the things that Imam Husayn writes to Muawiyah is that he reprimands Muawiyah against his actions of this sort, right? You had a full movement of assassination during his time. So something that is a message for us today is that one of the things that we need to do is break through the iron walls of censorship. Right? And you find that, alhamdulillah, people around the world are doing this right now. The question is whether the followers of the Ahlul Bayt are on board the train of resistance or not. Right? People are already doing it. I mean, it's an interesting time we're living in right now, because like 20 years back, we would think like, okay, how do we convince the people of the world? Now it's almost as if, how do we hold them a bit back? You know, we need to compete with these guys now, right? They're filling up the internet with quotations from Imam Khamenei. People who have no affiliation to Islam, no affiliation to the Shia school of thought. Just because of the resistance that the Islamic Republic has shown and the persistent support that it has given to the people of Palestine, and especially after this recent war that happened, people are forwarding, tweeting, doing whatever they can. They're making videos about Imam Khamenei. They're making videos about the martyrs of the resistance, Yahya Sinwar, etc. And this is already happening. So right now, the question, the more pertinent question, as we mentioned in another talk show as well, is that we have two responsibilities. First, get on board, right? Not be left behind, so that on the day of judgment we can say that yes, we were part of this movement, right? And then number two, provide that ideological guidance to this movement. Prevent it from being corrupted in the medium and long terms, because now the tyrannical regimes of the world, the collective West, the Zionist structure, what it will try to do is to subvert the movement, right? And to break it into smaller pieces, pull them towards non-issues, pull them towards infighting on meaningless ideological points that make no sense, right? So that is something that the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, given the examples that they have in history, the examples that they have in their scholars, that is the kind of leadership that they can provide. And leadership doesn't really mean that you are like announced as a leader of some group. Leadership is that you're able to provide the wisdom to people who need that wisdom, even though they don't recognize you as being in any place of authority, any rank of authority. But giving them that software, that knowledge that they need to, and this is interesting because, you know, we do this with our kids. When our kids are very small, they don't see us as role models of authority, right? When they're playing with their toys and you find that, okay, this square thing goes into that hole, right? You just tell your kid to do that and he or she does it and has a lot of fun with it, right? So it doesn't register in their mind that, okay, because this guy had wilaya, he had, right, that is why I am obeying. No. And you as a parent don't care about that either, right? You don't want to enforce your authority upon them. You wouldn't care less. What you want to do is transfer the knowledge, transfer the wisdom, right? And to stop any harm from coming to the kid, and at the same time allow the kid to grow and develop and enjoy, etc., that they can. So anyway, so coming back to Qays, because we don't want to forget Qays midway,
and
right?
we're running out of time too.
So, so one of the people that he absolves is Habib ibn Mazahir, which is obviously, if this was his only achievement,
it was a big achievement.
This would have been like, this would have been so huge on the day of judgment. So then, obviously, as we know, Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salam, when he receives that extremely glorious welcome in Kufa, and he becomes satisfied with their obedience and their allegiance, he writes back to Imam Husayn alayhi salam. So the person carrying his letter back to Imam Husayn alayhi salam is again Qays. And now Qays joins the caravan of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. Right? After the martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqeel and alayhi salam, and Imam Husayn finds out that this has happened, he sends Qays with a letter to the Kufis, basically addressing the elite of Kufa, especially the elite amongst the Shia of Kufa, people like Sulaiman ibn Surad al-Khuzai, etc. And now, what happens is that he's always been able to circumvent and to avoid all of these checkpoints and the roadblocks, etc. But this time he falls into the trap of the enemy. And this obviously, given the war circumstances and given the fact that now Ubaidullah has already arrived in Kufa and the entire draconian regime has gone on hyperdrive. So now it's not just passive kind of a supervision of all the routes. It's now an active and extremely, you could compare it with the kind of things that you see in these portrayals of fascism in many movies. So you have checkpoints at every corner. So he, at a place called Qadisiyah,
I was going to bring up Israel, but
and Israel, right? Exactly, because Israel is now, it is like what people say is they're Zionazis, right? So that is how, but Israel is in fact a much better example, because the amount of concentration of this big brother regime that they have there, everything is controlled. Like, absolutely. Just look at the geography of occupied Palestine. It's such a small place. And then look at the geography of the West Bank and Gaza, which are like micro places now. And then you have absolute usurpation of freedom of movement.
Freedom of movement and
exactly. So
Qadisiyah,
so he arrives in a place called Qadisiyah, and there is where he's captured by a commander of the enemy, who's Husayn ibn Numayr, and Husayn is with Assad, right? This is the same guy who is that history says is one of the killers and the murderers of Hazrat Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam. So Husayn ibn Numayr, he captures Qays ibn Mus-hir. And what Qays does is, being this veteran of communication warfare, the moment he realizes that he's fallen into a trap, he destroys the letter. He destroys the letter. He either eats it up or tears it apart. In whatever the circumstances might be, he makes it. He makes sure that the enemy does not get the letter. He is obviously captured. He's tied up. He's brought back to the court of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. There, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad starts speaking to this guy, right? And you should remember the context of this entire conversation is that Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salam has already been martyred in that extremely inhumane of fashions. And the other message here is that when Muslim ibn Aqeel has already been martyred, where are the people of Kufa at that time anyway? Right? So obviously it's a small place. It's not as if like if Qays ibn Mus-hir is being brought to Ubaidullah's court,
everybody will know.
Everybody would know, right? And
probably Hani ibn Urwa is also martyred by this time.
Absolutely, exactly. So you see that these martyrdoms are happening, but the apathy, even within the Shia community there, right, is something that we need to learn from.
Even though I'm trying to avoid because it'll start to become too long. But what I think is interesting here is that the enemy, in this case right now, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, what we're talking about is sometimes they do a move or they commit an action which is so audacious that it really shocks everybody else and it automatically makes them kind of surrender and submit, So what's really interesting is that here, for example, Hani ibn Urwa was a tribal chief. He was the leader of one of the biggest tribes in the city of Kufa. Muslim ibn Aqeel, Bani Hashim, he's welcomed by the majority of the people of Kufa, which is probably in the tens of thousands.
Absolutely.
And so these are two very big, renowned, I guess famous, important, elite people that all of a sudden just without any hesitation, he went and he killed. Even in the present day is where I wanted to connect it, is a lot of times this is what the enemy does, is they do some kind of very audacious move in order to make everybody else surrender and say, like you said, is if he's killing Muslim ibn Aqeel and Hani ibn Urwa, and these are such, great personalities, then who am I? He's going to wipe me off but this is where people need to I guess stay strong and not fall into the trap of the Ubaidullah ibn Ziyads.
Certain teachers who do analyses of this kind, they say that there are different objectives that are being pursued by the enemy when they do something of this sort. We've had assassinations in contemporary times as well. Ismail Haniya, Yahya Sinwar, Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah, Safiuddin, Hashim Safiuddin, and then all of the commanders, Qasim Soleimani, Rizwanullah Ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, and then the commanders recently in this war. So the purposes here there are several levels of purposes. One of them is, to make people afraid. So people who do not have the iman, who do not have the faith, who do not have the commitment, who have not already practiced resistance actively in their lives, in that manner that we just talked about momentarily before. If they're not part of that movement and they're just spectators, all of a sudden this is the reaction that they have. Oh, they've killed Ismail Haniya? Like if I'm a Palestinian, right? They've killed Ismail Haniya. I'm just a normal person. I'm just a normal doctor, a nurse, a grocer, etc. What will they do to me? What will they do to my family? Because you remember Ismail Haniya, Rizwanullah Ta'ala alayh, he and his wife, like they were, in a manner of speaking, his wife was like Ummul Baneen, because so many of his children had already been martyred before, right? And it was like almost an entire family wiped out. And then we recently, in this attack that Israel did, this low-handed attack they did recently in this war, again, many families were wiped out. Because especially the researchers, the scientists, they weren't like military people, so they weren't like in some operation headquarters, etc. They were at home.
Yeah.
And one of these scientists who was at home, his in-laws were at his home as well, because again, these were nights that were people were together, and they wiped out the entire family, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the question arises for other people that, okay, so maybe the same will be done to me, right? And that is where the Quran answers us, right? The Quran says that those who have faith, and you can even go beyond that, those who have honor, right? Their reaction to this situation is that it increases them in resistance and in steadfastness. So the Quran, in its own vocabulary, it says that it increases them in iman, right? Yeah. But even people who are not part of that, formally part of that Islamic movement, but in a natural sense, in a sense of how their souls are preserved towards their natural temperament, that honor pushes them towards more resistance. And you find this in many people around the world. So for example, when the ICE thugs in the United States, they pick up certain leaders of the resistance movement, the people don't just shrug off and they say, oh, maybe no, I'm even in a worse state than this guy in terms of my residence permit and etc., my student loans. No, they gather up, they rally behind the guy, and then they achieve a relative victory in regards to that case. And that is how it works. This is one objective. Another objective of the enemy is to gauge the reaction of the people. These objectives overlap, right? So if the people react in a subdued manner, if they react with cowardice, then the enemy marches forward because it sees that it's an easy prey, right? So if people, for example, in the United States, if they do not stand up to the ICE thugs, to the fascism of the Trump regime, which is not just particular to Trump, the masks have just come off. It's a system-wide fascism. But if they don't stand up to this, what will happen is that their so-called freedoms will be curtailed further and further and further and further, until you reach a point that, for example, in the United Kingdoms, saying freedom for Palestine is now considered a terrorist act, right? You saw those pictures of this 80-year-old, 90-year-old nun being arrested for terrorism, right? While at the same time they wine and dine with a person who has not just been accused of crimes against humanity, not just been accused of genocide, but has been, through the ICC, has been declared as a criminal.
And there's an arrest warrant
and there's an arrest warrant out for him, right? And the ICC and a structure and an institution created by the West, not by Palestine, not by the global South, not by China and Russia, not by the Muslim world, right? So this is what happens. If you show cowardice, if you take a step back, they'll come a step forward. But if you show resistance, then in the long term, they will be forced to pull back. Even though in the medium term, obviously, they will try to push you as far as they can. But in the long term, as Imam Khamenei says, the cost of resistance is always lower than the cost of surrender. Right? The cost of surrender is like, it's mind-boggling. So
they've killed Muslim ibn Aqeel, they've killed Hani ibn Urwa, they've arrested Qays ibn Mus-hir. He has somehow destroyed the letter that Imam Husayn alayhi salam had sent to the tribal chiefs of Kufa.
This in itself should have re-sparked the flame of revolution in Kufa. You know, if in a community that has honor, it doesn't even matter if you're Shia or not. Seeing people from the Bani Hashim killed in an inhumane manner, you see, the pretense wasn't even preserved. If they wanted to like show and spin the entire thing as being like, for example, Ma'azallah, Muslim ibn Aqeel is a criminal and therefore we're hanging him, okay, then hang him, right? Why are you throwing him off the roof and then cutting his head off and etc., etc., etc.?
And then dragging their bodies in the streets.
Exactly, right? This should have been a warning enough to the people of Kufa, even the people who were from a different denomination, from people who had different inclinations in terms of ideology. We should remember that people like Zuhair ibn Qayn alayhi salam was seen as an Uthmanite during that time. Before the event of Karbala, he saw himself
as a party of Osman.
As one of the party of Osman, who believed that Osman's caliphate was a legitimate caliphate, etc. And the rift at that time, the political rift, the polarization was the party of Ali and the party of Osman. Obviously, the party of Osman was a construct which had been created by the Bani Umayyah. We need to say this so that people don't misunderstand what we are saying as something sectarian in nature. The party of Osman, the Osmanite sect, was something that was created by the Bani Umayyah, by the Umayyad regime, in order to legitimize its illegal war against Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali alayhi salam, who through consensus is believed to be the fourth rightful caliph. So it's the Shias agree, the Sunnis agree. The only people who don't agree are the Nasibis, right? In the words of several contemporary Sunni ulama, that the entire consensus of the Ummah on Imam Ali alayhi salam is not something that can be ignored. And in the politics of Imam Ali alayhi salam, if we don't say recognize, we at least say he tried to preserve the office of caliphate. Preserve it. And that is why he sent his own sons as guards to guard the house of Usman against any prospective assassins, etc. Right? But the Bani Umayyah regime, the governor in Damascus, he used this idea to come up with this pseudo sect, right? To pit people who were trying to create like a bipartisan system, right? To pit people against one another. And therefore to create animosity against Imam Ali alayhi salam and his sons.
So there was different ideologies in the city of Kufa, even the people of different ideologies.
If you had honor and if you had humanity and if you had empathy, you would see that this is wrong in any book. According to which verse of the Quran can you take heads off? Can you drag bodies in the streets, bodies of Muslims? Even if these were bodies of Ma'azallah kuffar, which part of the Quran or the Sunnah allows that?
Allows this kind of stuff.
Right? So that should have been enough to create a reaction in the population and say, Hayhat min zillah, this is zillah, this is indignity for us. History will remember us as people who acted in this manner to our guests, right? Acted in this manner to the Bani Hashim. Even if we disagree with the claim of Bani Hashim with regards to the fact that they are like the rightful caliphs and the rightful inheritors of the Prophet, we still are under their debt in terms of the fact that Rasulullah was from Bani Hashim, right? So that reaction should have come forth, but that reaction did not come forth, and therefore that sped up the entire, that snowball effect of the tyrant going from bad to worse and creating greater crimes as we go along. So now we have Qays in Ubaidullah's court, right? And there's this conversation, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad lanatullah.
I have to interrupt again because it's so interesting. Even though we're talking about it from a historical perspective, but this resonates to the present day, to the recent past, and even to the future, you know. And people should, and I don't want to keep on taking lessons out because we'll keep on expanding, but people should be kind of thinking about this chain of events that's occurring and what we're saying, because these are applicable to the present day. You know, if we just kind of go hands down, then the enemy will continue to do more crimes. It'll become more audacious, you know. And they'll target everybody, you know, and so these are very sensitive times that we're going through. It might be scary, you know, it might be difficult, you might get worried, you might get targeted, but this is what happens if people don't stand up at sensitive
Absolutely.
times, you know.
You see, sometimes you resist because you have an ideological commitment to it. This is the best form of resistance, right?
Yeah.
Because you understand what shahada is, you understand what iman is, etc., etc. You're the best of the best, you're the cream of the cream. But if you even come down to the baseline, a baseline that all human beings understand, of something that all animals understand really, self-preservation.
Yeah.
Right? The preservation of my own self and my further generations.
Yeah.
You see? When you let tyranny fester and become worse and worse and worse and become more adamant, become more shameless, right? They're not just going to persecute people of very great character. They're going to persecute you as well.
Yeah, everybody's in line.
Exactly. So, for example, if you look at the Zionist regime, it's not just the Palestinians that they persecute and they create nuisance for. Right? The Jews who do not believe that they should be serving in the IDF, which is actually the IGF, the genocidal force, right? They are persecuted on a regular manner. They are secondary rate citizens in that state, that so-called Jewish state, right?
Yeah.
Right? Then
they're Jews that are discriminated against in a Jewish state.
Exactly, right? And then you have a third level in society. You have the darker Jews, people who claim to be Jewish, but they are of African heritage. They are treated just as, just as slaves, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As servants of the Caucasian Jews, right? And those, interestingly enough, those Caucasian Jews aren't really even Jews, like according to the research that has been done in terms of genetics. They can't be traced back to the Middle East anyway. So it's very interesting how that happens. So even your own population suffers because you remain silent. And now you're seeing the same because of the, when we go back in history, if the United States was not allowed to do the crimes that it did 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, the story would not have reached this level.
Sure.
Right? That now you, as an American citizen, and I'm talking to the audience obviously, you are not safe even on the internet.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm an American citizen, and I don't feel safe at all at the hands of the American government. I just wanted to throw that in there.
I consider a run-of-the-mill American citizen, right?
Sure,
as someone who's not even Muslim, he's not even, maybe doesn't affiliate to any religion, right? And he has this American lifestyle, right? And so he works all day long, drinks, right? One day at night, he's had a hard day, he's had a few to drink, he's at home, he goes on the internet, he sees a picture of a Palestinian kid blown to pieces, and he writes something abusive about the Trump regime or about the United States or about Israel. The next day, he finds himself in court in the best of circumstances, and he finds himself in a CIA black site, given the worst of circumstances. Right? This guy who had done nothing, his tweet could not even be called an act of resistance.
Sure,
right?
sure.
It was just a reaction that any human being might have. And that is how, but how did this tyranny come about? Because a long time back, when this tyranny was in its sapling stage, when it was in a seed-like stage, people did not stand up to curtail its growth. Right?
And it leads to Qays ibn Mus-hir.
When you do not stand on the side of people like Malcolm X, right, then things come to a point that then you cannot even be safe in your own homes. Right? So that is what happens. And the same is true with the United Kingdoms. The same is true with all of these other countries, right? One of the great honors of the Islamic Republic, alhamdulillah, is that from its inception, and even before that, throughout the movement of Imam Khomeini, one of those consistent matters of policy was resistance against Zionism. The rejection of Zionism and the support of Palestine.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the Palestinians are doing, regardless of whether they like us or not, regardless of whether they agree with us or not. Even in the time of Yasser Arafat, the Islamic Republic was standing beside the Palestinian people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, alhamdulillah, we see that even the Palestinian groups, and it's been a long time now, they completely understand the logic of resistance now. Because they've seen like what has happened. Right? So we have all of these lessons that we need to learn from. And the only one in the long term, the only ones who are, that history won't treat them as criminals as well, are people who were resisting consistently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though they were in a minority, even though they were not able to effectively change the systems, but Malcolm X will always be remembered as someone who was successful because he resisted.
Yeah, exactly.
Now this is something that we learn from Imam Husayn. Imam Husayn is successful not because he got into power or because he did not get into power. He is successful because he stood on his principles and resisted.
Yeah.
He did what needed to be done.
Yeah.
So that is one of the greatest lessons that we have from Karbala.
Yeah. I don't know, Sayyid, if you want to see, I think he's pretty close to becoming martyred now.
Yeah, because
Qays ibn Mus-hir.
Yeah, because they have this conversation and then, but the conversation is very interesting because Ibn Ziyad, he asked him that, who are you? So Qays, being this veteran covert operative, he says that I'm just a person, I'm just one of the followers of Ali. So he's not even giving him his name, his
I'm
lineage.
just a nobody.
Yeah, I'm a nobody, but I'm a follower of Ali. You know, because because that in itself is psychological operation, right? Someone who's not afraid to proclaim at this stage that I am a follower of Ali, right? But I'm not going to give you my name and my lineage and my tribal affiliations because you can use those against the movement, right?
Yeah.
Then he says, okay, you don't want to give me your name. Why did you tear up and destroy the letter? So he's very frank. He says, because I didn't want you to get the letter, because I didn't want you to read its contents, right? So, and that again is psychological warfare, because now Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad and his court, they don't know what's written, right? So now their imaginations are racing. What was this piece of communication? Has this piece of communication reached the Kufan people from an alternative source maybe? Right? So they don't know anyway. It's an absolute fog of war that Qays is creating here, right? And this is one man. This is one man.
Mashallah.
So Ubaidullah, he gets frustrated. He says, who was the letter from? And who did it address? And he says, okay, the letter was from Imam Husayn alayhi salam and it addressed some of the people of Kufa. He doesn't even say like his followers from Kufa. It's some of the people of Kufa. Maybe Imam Husayn alayhi salam was writing to the Uthmanites. Maybe he was writing to Bani Asad. Maybe he was writing to Bani Tamim. So again,
some of the people.
The confusion and the frustration gets... And the only information that he's divulging basically is things that Ibn Ziyad already knows. Right? It was from Imam Husayn because I'm a messenger of Imam Husayn. Obviously, I'm coming. Right? Then Ibn Ziyad, he becomes extremely frustrated, angry, and he says, look, by God, either you tell me what that communication was about, and this frustration itself shows what effect this has had on his psychology, right? You either tell me what that letter was about, or you go on the pulpit and you curse Imam Husayn and his followers, and you curse his movement. You curse Imam Husayn, you curse his father, you curse his brother, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, right? And or else I'm going to cut you up into small pieces. And you know, Qays, again, the context is important. Qays isn't the first martyr in Kufa. So there is no scope for Qays to think that maybe he's bluffing.
No, if he says
he already knows because
he's going to kill
the
me.
letter he was carrying right now was after Imam Husayn received the news of Muslim ibn Aqil's martyrdom. So he knows that this is his certain end, right? But he doesn't bend. So now Qays, again being this expert covert operative, He uses taqiyya in his proper manner, and he says, okay, I agree to go on the mimbar. Right? Apparently, he's agreeing to curse Imam Husayn and his father and his brother and his movement, right?
Yeah.
And Ibn Ziyad thinks that this is a propaganda coup. I couldn't get Muslim Ibn Aqeel to do this, but I got Qays, and Qays, he's a small figure. And since when he goes on to mimbar, obviously he'll have to tell the people who he is. You can't just put any,
average Joe.
Any average Joe and say that, okay, this guy is, so he's cursing Imam Husayn. Doesn't make a difference, right? He'll have to declare who I am.
I'm the emissary, I'm the messenger.
What my affiliation is.
I'm a follower of Ali.
I'm a follower of Ali. What my status in my tribe is. The moment I speak my name, people know who I am, right? These aren't small people. These aren't insignificant people. And then that effect will come about, that they'll see that, okay, even Imam Husayn's closest followers, tribal leaders, are saying that Imam Husayn is not on the proper path. Because the entire narrative being created at that time was that Imam Husayn has done khuruj. He has risen up against the legitimate Islamic government, and therefore, ma'azallah, he has gone out of the circle of Islam. Right? So Qays, he does taqiyya, and this is an interesting example of how taqiyya is used, right? The technical word for what Qays did is tawriya, right? He uses words in a manner so that the audience, the one being addressed, doesn't understand his true intention. He uses taqiyya to push forward the mission of Islam. So we've always talked about this, right? That you have this misunderstanding of what taqiyya is, and then you have the proper understanding of taqiyya. And because we don't have the time right now, for anyone who wants to actually see what the proper understanding of taqiyya is, they should read that chapter about taqiyya from Imam Khamenei's book called Imam Husayn's Brothers in Arms. Right? So Qays, he goes onto the mimbar and he sits on the mimbar, and obviously he introduces himself, etc. And he starts reading the khutbah, and he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he praises the Prophet, and then he starts praising the family of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then what he does is he starts cursing Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad and his followers and the Yazidi regime and the Umayyad regime, and he starts talking about their crimes and how they are completely the opposite of all of the Islamic values, and how they have destroyed everything that Islam had worked for. And then he starts, because he's already introduced himself as the messenger of Imam Husayn, he starts telling people about Imam Husayn. He calls them towards Imam Husayn. So now you see the entire chessboard is reversed. And Ubaidullah, who thought that he was, just imagine the amount of psychological pressure that Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad was under within this situation, right? And it also shows us that it was never a lopsided movement that Imam Husayn. Many people think that Imam Husayn's movement was of this sort, that he was with his 72 followers, right? And on this side you had tens and thousands of the enemy, and it's logistically it's an impossible mission, right?
Sure.
But if you read the history of Karbala, you find that at every turning point, it was thinner than the tip of a razor. It could have gone both ways. At this point, the people of Kufa could have risen up. Okay, they didn't rise up when Hani ibn Urwa. They didn't rise up with Muslim ibn Aqeel. But now they could have risen up because Ubaidullah had congregated them, brought them together into the mosque, and allowed, by Allah's wisdom, makaru wa makar Allah, by Allah's planning, he had allowed Qays to speak to them. They could have risen up. But they still decided not to. And those decisions, those small drops that come together become a hailstorm. Right? So it was, and it is this at this point that obviously Ibn Ziyad, he orders Qays to be taken up to the roof of the governor's palace. He is kicked, his hands are roped behind his back. He is kicked down from the top of the roof. He falls down onto the ground below. History narrates that all of his, because obviously when your hands are tied on your back, then you fall on your face,
on
right?
your face, yeah.
Which is again interesting. Like you have so many. This theme keeps repeating itself in the Masaib of Bani Hashim in general. So he falls down. History says that people who were present, they bore witness later on that all of his bones were broken, and he was like basically his feet were dragging on the ground. And it was at this point that one of the followers of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, called Abdul Malik ibn Umair, he comes up to him and he takes off his head. He basically slaughters him, butchers him in front of everyone who's already looking on.
Yeah.
Now again, an interesting episode happens here. People start objecting against Abdul Malik.
The guy who just cut off the head
right?
Of Qays.
And they start objecting against him. Why did you do this? This is so inhumane. Right? We might pass over this little piece, this little narration, but it starts me thinking. They've seen so many other inhumane things. You see, when protest becomes luxury as well, when you convince yourself, when you convince your conscience that just by saying, oh, this is very bad, extremely, I'm truly sorry, this polite kind of, expression of sadness and sorrow, this itself is an obstacle to true resistance.
Yeah,
because you're kind of convincing yourself that you've done everything that you could. Right?
And fooling yourself.
Throwing Qays from the top of the governor's palace wasn't inhumane. Cutting his head off was inhumane. How does that make sense? Right? So you see that there is this disconnect within their minds.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this guy, he says that no, all I wanted to do was put him out of his misery. And they accept this excuse. You see?
It's almost like they were grateful that he said this.
Thank God he said this.
Yeah.
It's like when
he's a good guy after all.
When the Zionist regime attacks an hospital, right? You have people who are like, they are suddenly thrust out of their comfort zone, and they say that, okay, maybe I'll have to react to this. I don't want to react to this, but I'm going to have to react to this because I have to keep up the entire pretense of me being a human being. And then all of a sudden you find on CNN, on BBC, and on all of these, channels and etc., that they say, no, we didn't attack the hospital. It was Hamas who attacked the hospital. And then these people within themselves, they say, thank God.
Thank God it was Hamas.
Yeah, thank God.
Human shield.
Thank God that an excuse is out there.
Yeah.
Even though no one's going to believe that excuse.
Yeah.
Right? But thank God an excuse is out there. Right?
Yeah.
And this is how that psychological disease of accepting lies and then putting yourself into a psychological position that you disarm yourself in terms of your responsibility, this is how that becomes stronger and stronger within a person.
Yeah.
Right? So what you find in society right now and back then in Qays's case as well is, and throughout these different episodes in history, is that, you see, tyranny is a two-edged sword. It's like clapping, right? It takes two hands, right? It's not just the tyrant that is inflicting people with tyranny. It's the people who are willing to accept that tyranny and not protest against it that are empowering the tyrant as well.
Yeah.
So people who do not call out genocide enablers such as Piers Morgan, such as the spokespersons of the White House, the spokesperson of 10 Downing Street, the politicians, the Republicans, the Democrats, the Labours, the Conservatives, people who are not calling them out are themselves become at a lower level genocide enablers. Right? So you can't really clap with one hand. Right? A tyrant needs a population that is willing to accept that tyranny. And the moment that this population stops willing to accept that tyranny, the death of that tyrant and the point that that tyrant becomes obsolete begins to take place. And that is what is happening in Palestine right now. The defining feature of the Palestinian people, the Yemeni people, the Iranian people, the Lebanese people, is that they say no.
Yeah, we won't accept this.
We won't accept this. You can kill us, you can maim us, you can destroy our populations, you can kill our leaders, you can destroy our buildings, you can destroy our towns, our villages, you can take everything away from us, but you can't take away our voices. And our voices will keep on saying no, which is the modern day translation of Hayhat min ad-Dhillah. So you find that these people all around the world, they are followers of Imam Husayn. Whether they know it or not, they're followers of Imam Husayn alayhi salam.
Yeah, Jazakallah. Thank you so much, Sayyid Agha Raza. What a nice place to at least pause the talk show for the time being, that these are followers of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. If only we are able to let them know that, listen, you guys are already followers of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. You just need to take just a few more steps, and level up, inshallah. Thank you so much for joining us on the talk show. Our condolences to you, your loved ones, on this months of Muharram and Safar and the martyrdom of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. Inshallah, we hope to have you on another talk show soon, inshallah. Thank you so much, dear viewers, for joining us on the Islamic Pulse talk show. We were talking about the resistance of Qays ibn Mus-hir, and the resistance in general. Very many beautiful points that came out, inshallah. Please remember us in your du'as. That's all from us for now. Fi amanullah, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.